Business Insider. And yeah, I also just want to say, like, I have personally never taken a journalism class in high school. I don't really have a big background in like journalism or writing from like a professional standpoint. I'm more of like a self-starter. And if you had to ask me like what I kind of specialize in now or like focus in as far as writing, it's mainly health and wellness. Because of COVID and because of everything going on, I've been doing a lot of writing related to health, mental health, wellness, self-care, sleep. And I've also been focusing a lot on Gen Z culture, which entails like education and high school and college students. I have a piece coming out in the Huffington Post soon about college student mental health. So you can be on the lookout for that. But yeah, that's me. And I just want to let you know, like, I did not come from a writing background, and I have done a lot of writing. And so if that's you, or if you don't have a big background, you can definitely get a foot in the door. So yeah, today in today's workshop, I'll be explaining just how to do that, and I'll be diving into like what is STEM journalism, how do you get your STEM articles published in different media outlets, how you can really build your audience and grow your readership, because that's really important when it comes to like building your brand as a writer and finding new opportunities. So yeah, I'm really excited to present to you guys, and thrilled to share the ways that helped me as a writer. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and talk about this huge umbrella term called STEM journalism, also known as science journalism. They have a lot of different names and things for it. But essentially, this is a field where most of the focus is on a lot of like technical subjects, science subjects. It's really very distinct from like personal essays or op-eds or any sort of like creative style writing. This is more very technical or very informative. Not being said, there can be narratives or personal essays relating to STEM, but usually this is like an industry where you see a lot of people with like undergraduate degrees in biology or in chemistry. Even some people with degrees in computer science take up writing and eventually become journalists in the field. So yeah, it's a huge industry. There's a lot of nuances, and there's just a ton of topics in STEM that you can write about. So what makes a good STEM topic? So now you know what kind of STEM journalism entails. Now that you know like what kinds of topics are um, in the field of STEM, and considering there's just so many possibilities, like how can you narrow down a couple ideas to develop into a story? Like what are some things that you could really focus on as a writer? So I went ahead and just plugged in this article that I did as an example. I actually interviewed Audrey Pay, and I think she did a workshop for you guys earlier. And she's great, and so are these Gen Z STEMinists that I got to interview. But essentially, what I would recommend, so for this example, I'm going to kind of take it as like a case study. So this was, I think, published in March, and I think this was National Women's History Month. So one of the issues when we talk about women's rights and women's issues is the big gender gap in STEM, right? So I kind of tied it in because March was National Women's History Month, and I tied it into current day Gen Z STEMinists who are actively working to do activism and advocate for more inclusion and representation in the STEM field. So when it comes to choosing a topic, I would really say focus on like the current circumstances. If you have like a newsy hook, you know, especially a national day, a national month, And also focus on something you can write a lot of words about. I know it's hard to kind of find certain topics because it's just like one idea. You need to really find an idea where you can interview multiple people. You need to find an idea where you can see yourself writing about, I would say 500 to 1,000 words. Um, and something that's very specific. Like in this article, I focused on young people that were also STEMists. So you need to find something that's very niche. And I would also say, like, what are the kinds of things that you like to read, or what are the kinds of things that you like to write? Really reflecting about that and thinking about those things are really helpful when crafting a good STEM topic. So I know I talked about a lot, but essentially you need to make sure a STEM topic is very niche. A STEM topic is very broad, oh, sorry, not broad, but very specific and comprehensive. And also make sure to outline your idea before writing about it. So I also went to Teen Vogue and just typed in STEM and showed you guys some examples of articles that are STEM related. So you guys can get an idea of like what are some good STEM topics that past writers have written about. And of course, there's so many great STEM topics that barely make it to media. And these are just a few. And you can see like these articles if you Google STEM articles or go to Teen Vogue and look up these articles, you can see how they're very specific and how they explain a larger problem, but also include a lot of perspectives of different sources. And yeah, it's really interesting how there's so many things in STEM, and I'm super excited to be writing about this in my freelance writing career. So I also implemented a lot of your guys' questions into my presentation because you guys asked a lot of wonderful questions, and I thought, why not include them? And also, most of what I'm going to be talking about today will be answering a lot of your questions anyways. So I thought this would be like an easy way to organize these. So the first question is like, what should you write about? As I mentioned before, like STEM is super broad. So how would you narrow down your ideas, right? So I would really say like find what inspires you, find what drives you in STEM. Maybe it was a personal moment, maybe it's a specific STEM topic, maybe it is a course you took and you want to examine that course further. Um, yeah, it could be a number of things. Maybe it's something that you read previously in STEM and you want to kind of write like a response to it with a unique perspective or like your own take. So yeah, really look into that. Find something that you really resonate with and that means something to you, because I've noticed like if you take on something and you don't necessarily like it when you start writing and you lose that motivation, it doesn't really come out that great. So make sure it's something that you really love or you really have like this powerful kind of motivation to continue writing about it. So the second question is like, where should I look for inspiration for article ideas? And as I mentioned previously, like going on sites like Teen Vogue, Elite Daily, MTV News, BuzzFeed, different outlets, the New York Times, reading STEM articles, looking for maybe your school newspaper and seeing what kinds of articles are posted there. Honestly, inspiration is all around you and it's all on the internet, so you can definitely look at previous articles and kind of start identifying like the format and the style, what kinds of stories do they publish, trying to get an idea of like, okay, how do my passions, how do my areas of interests align with what I'm reading, or is this a particular subject that this publication is trying to cover? You need to start thinking of those questions. And I feel like that will help you a lot when it comes to looking for inspiration, because it surely helped me. And then how do I know if your idea is good or not? So how can you kind of like identify or recognize this? And this is a hard question because a lot of times I'm always like, okay, I don't think my idea is that great, and then I'll go send it off or have someone else look at it, and they'll be like, um, this idea is amazing. So it really depends. I mean, I know as writers, we have a lot of like self-doubt. We feel very insecure, and that's totally normal. But I would really just try to figure out like, is it something that has been covered before? Is it a unique take? A lot of times, editors and publications are really looking for like interesting newsy hooks, interesting pieces of media, things that are not usually covered or spoken about like on a national level. So I think finding something really unique is important. But I would always, have other people kind of give you feedback or look at your ideas, because a lot of times when you get that outer perspective, that helps. But also don't let anyone like, tell you maybe or discourage you from writing an article that maybe, has a very general topic or something like that. I also think, as writers, we have sort of like a personal take on things, and we face a lot of discouragement from others sometimes. So don't let anyone, put you down like that, and definitely write about something that you love. So yeah, I just put some key takeaways here, just for you guys to see. Basically, like, find what inspires you. Also, don't limit yourself to one idea. I didn't really mention this, but when you're kind of brainstorming and looking for inspiration, kind of think of a couple ideas. Maybe I want to write about, women in STEM, but I also want to write about like maybe a new science experiment that's happening, or maybe I also want to write about a new course in the field of astronomy. So really anything that you feel passionate about, start crafting ideas. I would say once you have a couple broad topics, then you can start narrowing down them to article ideas, and starting to find sources and research and things like that. But yeah, inspiration is all around you. Definitely look to your resources, look online, ask people, start conversations. Those are really helpful. And then, yeah, your idea should be really comprehensive. For me, there's just so many ways to create ideas and like turn them into articles. So I don't really have much of a commentary on that, because, that's totally different for a lot of people. But for me, what helps is like, finding a broad topic, then narrowing it down to ideas, finding people I can interview, doing some background research, and ultimately creating an outline that I could see for a story, that I eventually get feedback on and things like that before I publish, which we will get into later on as well. So yeah, you at this point, or at this point of the presentation, if you already have a STEM article or an idea, I didn't write that on here, but essentially I wanted to say, like, if you write a STEM article or have an idea, like, now what? What's the next step for publishing that idea or publishing that story? Where should you go next with it, right? That's probably all what you guys are wondering, and that's the main, I guess, focus of this workshop as well. So yeah, so I'm going to just explain it in like 4 easy steps. So it's pretty a lengthy process, but I tried to organize it as much as I can, and hopefully it makes sense that way. So what I like to do personally, and I also want to say, like, before continuing, is like everyone has a different process of publishing their articles. What works for some people may not work for all. And this is my personal way, and I try to make it as general as I can, of what I do when I have an idea and want to get it published into like an article online. But I also want to let you guys know, like, you can create your own kind of variation of this, and yeah, like, just drive your own journey. You're the leader of, your path. So for this step, what I usually do is, like, first I kind of create like a bucket list. I mean, not really a bucket list, just like a list of publications or like places I really want to have my piece published. And I create like a list by order um, on where I want my story to be published, because like a lot of times we face rejections, and um, there are just so many publications out there. So like if I don't get it published in one publication, I can go on to the next. And it's a huge list of preference. And regarding list logistics, I usually just put it on like an Excel spreadsheet, which I love. I'll show you guys the next slide of one of my Google Sheets. Or actually, yeah, one is my Google Sheet on the left, and then on the right is a Google Sheet of one of my friends and what they use. So I'll quickly explain what I use, and that one's on the left. It's national publications. So I usually start with like 4 or 5 national publications I really want to send my article idea to. It's really important to have these defined goals, because if you just say, oh, I want to publish it on like the top 5 news outlets, what do those news outlets look like? Does their audience match what you're writing about? You really need to have those kind of target publications. So for me, one of my article ideas, I wanted my first preferences were Teen Vogue, Elite Daily, MTV News, and BuzzFeed. So those are like the top 4 national publications I want to see my article idea in, because that specific article idea that was really resonating with those publications based on like their previous articles, their tone, their style, etc. And then I realized, okay, well, if Teen Vogue, Elite Daily, MTV News, and BuzzFeed don't accept it, where can I publish it next? So then you can see like number 6, I put in my local newspaper. And so I live in Tampa Bay. So for me, it's the Tampa Bay Times. And then there's another newspaper called the South Florida Centennial that is also a big newspaper in my state. So I was like, okay, if I can't publish it in a national publication, let me try my local newspaper. Also, side note, I've never published in a local newspaper, but your local newspaper could also look like a student publication or your school's newspaper or anything like that. So I always want to hopefully get something published in my local newspaper, and that's one of my goals. And so for you guys, if you don't hit a national publication, maybe you can go with your local publication, whether it is maybe like a community one or a school one or something like that. And then I also put other publications on there. So if I don't get it in my local newspaper, I decided there are a couple other publications that would be a great fit. And these are just also kind of random. I did because I was like, okay, if by that point, let's see, there's like 6 publications I put on there. If I don't get into those 6, then the next 4, I will kind of align my idea that's more suited towards their publication. Like for instance, Everything Business Blog, Urban Asian, Affinity Magazine, and Thrive Global are quite distinct from each other a little bit. So in that case, if I have to publish it there, or if I ultimately decide to, I would probably edit my idea a little bit just to focus on their audience. So yeah, that's how I create my list. Of course, you can definitely make yours however you'd like, and maybe color code it a bit better, or maybe add a longer list. I'll get into this later as well, but eventually if you don't get it published anywhere, a lot of times writers will publish it on their own blog or Medium website. So if that is something that you find interesting, I think that would be great. I personally don't have a personal blog or Medium website, but if it comes to that in the future, I may publish a story on there. But yeah, if my story doesn't usually get published anywhere, it's usually just sitting in my Google Drive as a draft. And yeah, but in the future, that may change. So I also really quickly wanted to address the spreadsheet on the right. And this is something my friend created. She's also a freelance writer. And she just created like the 4 publications that she sent her ideas to, and then like who the contact is at each of those publications. what date she sent her idea over, like the status, whether the person got back. And I'll go into that more later on. But essentially that's another way to like keep it organized, because like here on my list, I just have, okay, Teen Vogue, if that gets rejected, I just move on to the next. But my friend makes it a little more detailed, because she's like, okay, well, if they replied saying, oh, pitch this or send this idea again in the next month, then you have that on file. For me, I would just say, like, if they're not able to publish it immediately, I'll just go to the one that is the quickest for me, because I want to get this out there, especially if the idea is timely. But it really depends on you. So step 2 is to find out how to contact the publication to submit your writing. And this is kind of easy, but also kind of not. And I'll let you know why. So a lot of times people ask me, like, how do you end up writing for Business Insider or Teen Vogue or Elite Daily or Architectural Digest? And I just tell them, look it up online, because the information is there. A lot of times people don't realize that the information is there, or that it's available to just like anyone, and it literally is. Sometimes it is not. So like some publications don't have articles on like how to write for them, or have pitch guidelines. Like for instance, the one for Business Insider was created by Business Insider, so you know exactly like what the staff there is looking for and how you can submit your ideas or stories. This pitch guide by the New York Times was written by a actual New York Times editor, who accepts pitches and article ideas that you can send over to him. This is another pitch guideline for Wired, and Wired created this. And then the one below for Teen Vogue, it was actually created by a former writer. It was not created by Teen Vogue, but it's really helpful. And sometimes you'll find these guidelines by former writers or editors who work there. So I'd really recommend searching these guides up, and really looking for more connections and resources like this, because it's definitely out there. There are a lot of publications who want you to send who want you to send ideas in and article ideas. So definitely take advantage of this. Yeah, I mean, that's how I found out about it, and I always share this with people when they ask me. And then step 3. So now you know how to submit it to publications. What do you even submit, right? It's basically a brief synopsis of your article. What I usually do now at this point is, just because I'm a little more experienced now with writing with different publications, I usually don't write like full-on drafts. I just create like a little outline or a little like idea kind of pitch for an article or for a story that I want to write, because it just takes a lot of time when you actually write it out. And usually it's best knowing like a publication will take it for you to actually invest the time and energy in writing it. But anyone who has like no experience and just wants to get into it, I would highly recommend writing the entire article out, or having like a very detailed outline or something, because that really helps when you are sending it to editors, or when you're kind of like introducing yourself as a writer. I found that to be very helpful, and that's how I kind of started. So I would highly recommend that. And so when it comes to like what should you include in your pitch, or what you should include in your little like description of what you want to write about, this is a perfect resource that I found. It was created by Lady Science, which is a science journal / like magazine that focuses on women in STEM. So if anyone wants to ever write for it, or is interested in just like reading it, I would highly recommend to check it out. I've never published there, but I love a lot of their articles, and it's really insightful, especially because it includes like essays and commentary and reviews and things like that. So yeah, this is a pretty specific way of how it goes for pitching ideas. So like your pitch should be 2 paragraphs. You should have like a main idea, like a thesis, and what angle that you want to write about it in, like what perspective are you taking, who are you including in your piece, what kind of research have you done, like just to ensure like what you're writing about is accurate, especially if it's like a newsy story. What kinds of context do you have? Like for instance, the article I wrote on the gender gap of women in STEM, I made sure to include facts and statistics of how there even is a gender gap and why it's important to write about it, because Elite Daily doesn't usually cover like women in STEM and those kinds of topics. So I really made to emphasize those details. I would also include like, why is the publication a good fit for your piece? Like what about the publication? Maybe it's their audience. Maybe it's their style. I mean, usually you should definitely make sure their audience, their style, and their content really fits with what you're writing about. So those are really 3 key things to make sure it's a fit. I would also include a little bit about yourself. Relevant clips is important, and they're basically like links to articles you have written in the past, whether it's for maybe like a school newspaper or a literary magazine or anything like that. But if you are just breaking a foot into this industry, I would say like sometimes it's not all that important. If you have a really strong idea, I don't think your experience matters that much if you're able to really execute it and work with your editor on publishing it. So the next thing that I have is to repeat this process to continue like sending in your ideas, right? So yeah, this is like the first 3 steps are mainly like the logistics of how you like plan it out and go ahead and send your article ideas and your pitches. But I would also say like so many times people have like really full inboxes and you get a ton of rejections. I'll tell you guys a little bit about my rejections and about my story, because it is surely very unique. Like for me, I had over 60 rejections with Teen Vogue. That means 60 different pitches and article ideas that I brainstormed to send to Teen Vogue on publishing, an article, because I really wanted to write for Teen Vogue. And ultimately my 61st idea was accepted and I wrote about it. It was about sustainable gifts for the winter holidays. And so I would really recommend being patient and resilient while you're submitting your ideas in. A lot of times there's just so many people who have similar ideas as you, who either have very close sources, or maybe the editors do not have bandwidth to accept all of the ideas, right? So you can face a lot of rejections and get a lot of no's, but for every 100 no's you get, I always tell people there will probably be one yes. You have to keep going through this, and because your drive and motivation will ultimately land success. So just because your idea isn't accepted, like, do not feel bad about it. Don't take it personally. There's just so many reasons why you may not be able to land an article in a publication or get your idea accepted, but keep sending in new ideas, keep brainstorming, and yeah, you'll definitely land success. So just to kind of explain like the logistical side of things, because I feel like I haven't done that, like, oh, what happens when you submit an article, like who takes care of it, because this workshop is mainly focused on how to get your articles like published. But usually when you send an article idea in and it does get accepted, you work with like an editor who will help you. refine your writing, plan the story with you, give you a lot of feedback, and it will ultimately get published on the site. It's pretty like smooth once you get an article idea accepted. I did have some turns here and there and some rocky paths, especially like fleshing some topics out and working with some editors. But essentially, yeah, I feel like once you get, your main goal is to try to get your ideas accepted and pitch things you can write about. And then once you do that, it'll be pretty smooth sailing from there. So some frequently asked questions about this process. And I wanted to just dive into them. Also, the little cat looks like me a lot when I send in my ideas, because it's usually like Sunday night and I schedule emails for Monday morning for the editor to look at. So the first question is like, should you send your ideas to more than one publication? And yes, definitely. But definitely do it by preference. Like if you send in, the first publication, like wait for a couple days or even like a week for the editor to respond, and then go to your second, publication, and third and fourth. However, if your idea is like very timely, I would recommend trying to make sure that you flesh it out and send it like weeks before it releases. So if you're doing an article for December, because of the holidays, like make sure you send it in November. I would also say, like, what if you don't receive an email back? If you don't receive an email back within like a week, I would definitely, send the article idea to another publication and just move from there. Editors are very busy. People who handle publications and work with pitches from writers are just super busy, and they don't have time to like even let like your idea has been rejected. And they usually only reply when it's been accepted, but also sometimes editors will get back to you like 2 weeks later, and say like, oh, I want to accept your idea. And by that time, if it's already published, like you would just have to explain that. How do you know if the publication is the right fit for your story? Again, as I mentioned, like look at the previous content of the publication, look at what kinds of articles and who the publication serves. Like Teen Vogue is the audience is pretty much teens and young people. And yeah, just kind of gauge it from there. Also see if the publication publishes like your style of story, because in your pitch you'll also be talking about like whether you want to write a Q&A, a personal essay, an op-ed, things like that, right? What if you do not end up placing the article? Well, I'll be going into some solutions there, but yeah, I mean, there's so many resources out there and ways you can get it published that I'm sure you'll be able to. And how do you improve your writing? So that's a big thing, because for me, whenever I submit drafts to my editor or work with any other person that's like a part of the publication, usually editors, sometimes I work with like more of content coordinators if the writing is very like content heavy, if it's, especially if it's not for like a publication, if it's for like a company or something, because I do some work with some companies. And I would really say like have a few people look at it before you submit it, like officially to the editor. Obviously your editor's job is to work with you on giving you feedback, giving you suggestions on how to improve your writing. So I wouldn't really, I guess, be too focused on making sure like what you're delivering is perfect. Definitely make sure you're following grammar and those kinds of things, because when you start writing, editors kind of already assume like you're good with the grammar and writing style and things like that. But I always just use like Google Docs or something that helps me a lot. I would also recommend, like, depending on the type of writing it is, having it go through like Grammarly or something like that would be helpful. But yeah, other than that, just believe in yourself and know that every step of the way there are resources out there that you can look at. And it's okay to fail. Like if you don't have something that's perfect, there are ways to improve and keep pushing and persevering for you to achieve success. So I'm going to really quickly dive into the key takeaways that I just organized over here. So definitely don't limit yourself to one publication. Keep a list, keep it consistent. If one editor rejects it, send it to another. Understand the publication's audience style and beats. Beats are really important. Beats are like, okay, you know how Teen Vogue has like a politics section, it has an entertainment section, things like that. You also want to make sure that you're pitching your idea to a publication that has the section that you want to write for. Because sometimes there are different editors for different sections. I mean, most of the time, actually. So make sure you are sending your idea to the right editor. Obviously, the guides will explain that. As I mentioned, the guides you can just Google. But that's really important when you're looking to see if your piece is a match for the publication. And then if your story does not get published, on the list of publications you are targeting, do not hesitate to self-publish it on Medium. You can self-publish it on LinkedIn or a personal website if you have one, or maybe a blog. Your story is important and it needs to be told. So I really recommend publishing it, by yourself, even if a publication rejects your idea. And sometimes publications, when they reject your idea, they'll respond. Maybe an editor will say, your idea was great, but we're actually looking for this and this, or an editor will say, here are ways that I feel like you can improve your idea. So definitely take their feedback into consideration. And then when you're pitching them again with a new idea, make sure to not, take their feedback and do so like they said. And then the last thing I will dive into real quick is how to grow your audience and your readership. So as a writer, I'm constantly building an audience. I'm building new opportunities for myself, and finding ways I could really grow as a writer, as a reader, as someone who just likes to put my words out there and create conversation. So some of the key takeaways for this, right? So if you had to ask me, what are some things that I do to build my audience and grow my readership, is one thing I do, which I definitely need to get better at, is promoting my work on my social media channels. I will say though, you should also try to understand the purpose of each of your platforms and kind of organize how you're going to showcase your work. For instance, I do keep my Instagram a private account because I definitely want to filter in, people that just request me. Anyone can usually follow me. I just want to make sure that sometimes I get, there are always haters out there who don't like what you write. So they'll follow you on social media and then they'll DM you or whatever. Or I just like to do that sometimes to keep my information private. But my Twitter is pretty much public. Anyone can go on Twitter and just tweet or something. But I also filter my Twitter DMs. LinkedIn, I keep it very professional, and I definitely need to start posting more on there. But yeah, promoting your work is really important, and understanding what your social media plays, what roles it plays, is important to know. I would also highly recommend keeping a portfolio or personal website to showcase all of your work. A lot of times people I know who do coding, I know people who are in art, who do design, they have a personal portfolio. And so if you already have one and you want to include writing on there, if you start writing, that'd be great. I also recommend maybe doing a separate thing just to have all of your articles on there, or just featured pieces, because that really helps editors kind of get a sense of your experience. And it's a great way to keep your work as you keep publishing, and creating a database for people to read your work. But it's not mandatory at all for this industry or anything, but it is highly recommended, and it's easy to create on a website that you can create, or just get someone to design it for you, or things like that. So that's really nice. And I would also say, like, try to publish your writing in multiple publications. Like, really wanted to publish in Teen Vogue, but actually only got one article published on there. And even though I keep pitching them, I also search for other publications and other opportunities that are in my line of work that have really helped me grow as a writer. Don't put your eggs in one basket, in other words. I would also say be on the lookout for like interesting stories you can write about, sources you can interview, interesting hooks. Maybe like something is um, going to come in the next few days. Maybe it's like an event that's happening. Maybe it's like, a hackathon that's, the first hackathon in the entire world to be, special for a certain thing, right? So looking for those specific special pieces of news are really helpful when crafting your ideas, because you can send it over to those publications and say, like, I want to write about this. This is an exclusive piece of news that no one is covering, and pitch it that way. I would also say, like, be an avid reader. If someone had to ask me, like, what is one thing that you like tell people to do to help them to become a better writer, I would say, like, keep reading. The more you read, the better you become as a writer, not just like content wise, but like as you're reading, you're understanding, like, grammar and sentence structure and how to like organize content. And reading has just helped me also learn about so many things out there. Like, every morning I read the New York Times and like Washington Post, CNN. Also, don't get too much consumed in the news. That's not healthy. But yeah, that's definitely something I recommend. Also, books, novels, anything, honestly. Reading is great and love it. And yeah, those are the takeaways. So yeah, it's perfect timing. There's about 10 minutes, and I wanted to leave some time for a Q&A. And so I'll just go in the chat. And so there's been a lot of messages. And so I want to just hear your questions, people have uh, written. So I see some questions already. I'm going to start answering them. So I think the first one is from, okay, well, there's a lot. Okay, so, okay, Christina, so I will answer your question. So you said, how did you get your contacts? So I really started getting my contacts for, and I see Alexis has written, how do you get your contacts to send pitches to? I started getting my contacts when I started reading those guides, because those guides that you can search up online have a bunch of contacts on them. And then after a while, your contacts kind of grow, because, sometimes you can get editor referrals. Sometimes you can follow the editor on Twitter, and sometimes they'll retweet, okay, an editor of another publication is looking for people to pitch, or writers. You can, that's a lot of ways you can implement to build your community, and really build like a network of people you can pitch to, whether it's like editors, publications, things like that. So yeah, really recommend those guides. And also there are definitely resources out there. Like, one thing I use on Twitter is Writers of Color. It's a Twitter community for writers of color. So if you are not a writer of color, please don't visit the community. But basically, it's like a Twitter thread of new writing opportunities that I always look at, and I also make contacts from there. So Marianne, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I see she said, so you write the article before you pitch, or do you pitch the idea first? As I mentioned before, if you're an early stage writer and you're just getting into this industry, I would definitely recommend writing the article before you pitch. I sometimes pitch the idea first, just because I want that kind of like security of it being published somewhere. But when I like first started writing, I definitely wrote the article before I pitched it. Christina also said, what is your writing process like? That's very nuanced for me. A lot of my deadlines are like 2 weeks. So if I already have an outline or sort of like a solid idea when I first pitch it, and it becomes accepted, I also start, building out my sources, interviewing people. It's a very like nuanced and lengthy process. But it all depends on what kind of story you're writing. Like if you're writing a personal essay, you don't have to interview people. But if you're writing like more of a reported feature, you do. So yeah, I just kind of plan my days around that and do a little each day. So like maybe one day I'll have an interview, then the next day I'll write a couple paragraphs, and then the next day I'll do something else, and then ultimately it builds out your draft. Okay, so Jia Ming, if I'm saying that correctly, I'm so sorry if I butchered anyone's name. She said, would you recommend sending your article to multiple publications at the same time or wait a little between each one? Great question. I would say wait a little bit between each one just to, make sure that like if one public accepts it, it saves you time and you don't have to reach out to the other ones. And also it's like you want, it to come in your order of preference. So if like you pitch it to all of the publications and you get multiple acceptances, it'll be a little hard to kind of like navigate with that. So I would definitely say wait a little between each one. And also I want to like say that I've not really had that many acceptances. Like I've sent my idea to like a ton of publications, but I think the most acceptances I had like 2 publications accept my idea. And I just feel like you won't have that many overlaps with multiple publications accepting your idea, just because a lot of times they're so different and things like that. Kit Sen said, if you send that article idea to multiple publications, what do you do if more than one is interested? So as I mentioned, like I've never really had that issue because I've always had a list. I definitely did have one time, I think I had 2 publications accept it, and that was in the earlier day when I didn't really know all this. And in that case, I think one publication ended up actually rejecting it later on just because they were like, I think I got the email that they accepted it and they were like, okay, never mind. So actually, didn't have to go through that. But I would say if that does happen, definitely you pick the publication you want to publish it in, or slightly write 2 different articles. But it's really hard because if you're writing about the same thing in 2 different ways, then it's definitely like hard to make sure it's not the same thing. So Ore, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, also asked a question. Do you usually mention your age, student status when pitching? That's a good question. For like teen-centric focused publications, I do, because like I want to show that I am a young person. But it really depends, and there's just a lot of companies and publications out there that don't really care about your age. Like it doesn't really matter. Like I know a 16-year-old who's publishing in the New York Times and Elemental. His name is Rainier Harris. You should follow him on Twitter. Amazing journalist. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. I would say it's up to you. I sometimes do, I sometimes don't. Just sometimes I like forget to. But it really depends. Alexis asked when I graduated from UC Berkeley, and I'm still a student there. So, but definitely DM me if you have any questions about UC Berkeley or writing in general. I'm not a journalism major. I'm actually a public health major, and I've never really written for a school publication. So not really sure on how to answer that, but I definitely have friends who have, so I can direct you towards them. Shreya asked, when was your first big publication published? Wow, that's a great question. I think my first big publication was like ID. It's like a publication that Vice owns, and I still continue to write for them. And I got published there in October of 2019. Yusra asked, is it possible you can send the link to the slides or notes? Yep, of course. Feel free to DM me on Instagram or something, or I think a recording of this will be sent to you guys so you can easily pause the video too if it helps. Yes, of course, I really appreciate this and I'm thrilled to be presenting. Anisha asked, how many different platforms have you written on? Approximate? Definitely more than 10. you can definitely look on my website to see all of them. But yeah, it's definitely a lot since I've been freelancing a lot more now because of the pandemic and like over the summer. But it really varies. I'm definitely gonna start limiting my writing as school starts. So yeah. So I know people are starting to leave. It is coming close to the end. But I really quickly wanted to let you guys know that I am doing an Instagram giveaway for all of you wonderful workshop attendees. I'm super thankful for your time, and I really appreciate you attending this. And I've actually partnered with a small business. Broglie Box LLC is a small startup that offers mental wellness care packages, and they do a lot of great work with mental health and supporting students, like they're releasing their ultimate back to school care package. So I wanted to do a little like giveaway with you guys. I'm going to send you some products of the care package and then also a little bit of writing tools. This is only based for US based workshop attendees. I'm so sorry to the people who are in different all across the world, like not in the US, who literally woke up super early or super late there, and you guys are attending this. I'm super thankful. Yeah, so all you need to do to enter is like just follow me and Broglie Box on Instagram. It also helps me to like know who entered if you follow me, so I can like see the names and I can recognize like after this or like in a few hours I'll be definitely getting followers from there. And it'll help me know like when you like or comment on the Broglie Box's post. I really want to help small businesses around this time. I know it's been really hard because of the pandemic. So I'm trying to help them get a lot of traction from you guys. So I'd really appreciate if you can like and comment on this specific post. And then if you want to go ahead and share this workshop on your Instagram story and like tag me or something, feel free to do that, and they'll award you an extra entry for this giveaway. And then the way that I will, announce the winner or like let you know is like, oh, I'll do it like maybe next Saturday or something, and I'll just DM you. So when I follow you, I'll have your handle as well, and I'll just let you know, and then we can, I can get your address and send you the stuff. If you have any questions about this or want to learn more about this brand or anything, definitely feel free to DM me or email me or anything. Would be happy to send it over. And then I also really quickly wanted to plug in, like if you have any questions and I didn't get to answer, or you maybe have a question later on or something, please feel free to contact me on any of my social media platforms or email. I think my email is on my website. I try my best to respond to every message in a timely manner. A lot of you guys have reached out to me like even before this workshop, and I hopefully got to most of you guys, if not all. But definitely expect a few days because I'm still trying to navigate with messages and everything. And yeah, really appreciate you all being here. I also want to say a big thank you to Girl Genius Magazine for like sponsoring and hosting this event. They're amazing. And they even have their own like magazine, which is like wonderful and like super focused on women in STEM and women in STEAM. So yeah, have a great rest of the weekend and stay safe, everyone.